Here we have a 2005 Skoda Fabia. It's the petrol 1.2 3-cylinder engine, and it's got roughly 71,000 miles on the clock. Okay, so we've got the Skoda in today for a service, and as part of that service I'll be changing the oil and filter. So under the bonnet here, this is the 1.2 petrol engine with this big plastic cover, which is it's also got the air filter in it. You should be able to just pull this off. It's just a ball and socket kind of arrangement. As you can see there, the rubber sockets, they just push onto these fittings sticking up here. Now it's got one pipe attached to it, which I'll probably leave attached actually. It can sit there. That's the oil filter, which we'll be tackling shortly. I always like to take off the oil filler cap, lay that out of the way, and just pull up the dipstick a little bit. One or the other would do, but I always do both. It just helps to allow the oil to flow out the bottom of the engine a bit smoother and doesn't glug and splat everywhere. So yeah, we'll carry on now and make a start on the oil filter. Right, to start with, I'm just going to put some blue roll down here. You're bound to lose a bit of oil somewhere, and don't really want it going in the alternator, just underneath there. So this is a 36mm. I started doing the oil filter before draining the oil out because I found on some cars you take this cap off and the residue oil held in here will drain down to the sump once you've taken the cap off and let a bit of air in there. Oh, you can see it a little bit going down there now. And over the blue roll. Right, we'll transfer this over to the vise and take the filter out and change the seal. Right, so this oil filter, yeah, should be able to just pull that out relatively easily. Right, I'll go and stand that on the drainer. So we've got a box here with the new filter in it. Should have at least one O-ring seal. Filter. Should be able to pick up this kind of thing for under 10 quid at this time of recording. Now I think this is the same on both sides, so it doesn't matter which way up you put it. Or is it? Yeah, it is, it's just a snug fit. I put a bit of rag around that before I push it right down, just in case there's a little bit of oil in the bottom that'll come out and hit you in the face. That seems good. Alright, so we've got an O-ring seal on here. Sits in a groove. And that's it, back in its groove. Okay, so that's quite simple to change. Go back over to the car and refit it to the engine. Okay, so this, as you can see, this peg here has got a locating the hole in the middle there. few drops of oil there. So on the top there, you can see it says 25.5 Newton meters. You might be able to see that. If you've got a torque wrench handy, that's all well and good. But it only needs to be nipped. You don't have to go too mad. It is only plastic. That should do nicely. Right, I'll pop that air filter. I think the air filter actually sits inside here. Yeah, you have to undo these screws to access the air filter. It's all part and parcel of the engine cover. Just got to make sure this rubber inlet here lines up with the throttle body. When you put it back on, there you go. Simple as that to refit. So next we'll take it up in the air and drop the oil out of the sump. Right, so underneath the car, you can see the engine sump here, and here's your plug to take out to drain the oil. It's actually got a 6mm Allen key. So there we go. You can use a normal Allen key. I've just got one in a socket there. So make sure you have your drainer close by. Engine's fairly warm, but it's not hot, so it shouldn't come out too fast. Obviously, the hotter the engine, the faster the oil will come out. Right, we'll just leave that for 5 or 6 minutes to drain down. Okay, so this has been draining now 5 or 6 minutes, and it's slowed down to a steady drip, which I'm sure it will carry on like that for hours, so we'll call it a day at that. I've got the sump plug here, still on the Allen key, and you can see it's got a copper washer there, which you can pick up at any motor factors, motor parts outlet. These are generally okay to reuse. Just give them a clean off and make sure they're not pinched or squashed or split. That one seems fine, so I shall pop that back in. Nip it up. Right, that's tight. I'll just wipe that off. So next we'll drop it down and refill with oil. Right, let's get some oil back in this vehicle. So as you can see on this engine, it's got a baffle plate here. So make sure your dipstick's up a bit, or you can take it right out. It's going to be a slow filler. So I'll try not to, actually I'll put a bit of blue roll there as well. A well-used bit of blue roll. So when I went to collect this oil from the parts outlet, I gave them the vehicle reg number, and they're able to identify the particular engine fitted to this car and recommend a grade and an amount of oil. So wherever you go, they're going to ask you for the registration number, so make sure you have that with you. There's so many different brands of oil, so many different prices, but I mean, you should be able to, if you shop around, pick up the oil for a job like this under £50, I would say, at this time of recording. I think this is going to take a little while to fill up. They said 3 litres they recommended. So I'm going to put in roughly 2.7, 2.8. Try and keep it below the recommendation and run it up, dip it, and then just top it up in small quantities until we get as close to that maximum mark as possible. It's easier to do that rather than just to glug the 3 litres straight in and find, oh, actually that's a little bit too much. Having too much oil can be just as much of a problem as having not enough, believe it or not. And it's a lot easier just to top up in small dribs and drabs rather than having to crawl back under the car and drain out any excess oil. Right, that's not quite the 3 litres. Cap on and dipstick back in, and we'll run that up and see where it comes to on the dipstick. So you don't need to rev it up. It's not a great idea to rev an engine that's just been drained of oil and refilled. It can take a few seconds to circulate. Hopefully the oil pressure light should go straight out, which it has. That sounds good. Just let it tick over. Let the oil circulate around. Okay, so we'll leave that for 2 or 3 minutes to let the oil settle back down into the sump, and then we'll dip it and see where the level is. Right, so this has stood now for 3 or 4 minutes, and on the dipstick you can see you've kind of got a bit of an indent there for the minimum, then another one here for the maximum. So we'll dip it now and see. I mean, hopefully it's somewhere between the two because I haven't put the full 3 litres in. Yeah, that's probably just under halfway. So I'll go ahead and top it up with a small quantity. Try not to make a mess everywhere. Right, so we don't need to run it up again because the oil's already circulated. The filter's got the right amount in it now that it should have. We'll just leave this again for another 3 or 4 minutes and check it again and just keep repeating this process until we're as close to the maximum mark on that dipstick as we can get. Right, so we've been topping up in dribs and drabs, and this is the final check. And as you can see, we're right up to the maximum now on that little bend there on the divot. So that's a good place to be. I'll just put that back in, put the cap on. all that's left to do now is to shut the bonnet, get it off the ramp. I'll give it a run round the block and double check the filter housing and the sump plug just to make sure there's no leaks. Hopefully that'll help some of you guys out. Thanks for watching. If you find our videos helpful, please hit like and subscribe to help us out. Nice one.